immersed in their everyday problems, focused on the demands of their job as well as their striving for money, enjoyments, entertainment, or what they would call a good career. People crossed the paths of the spiritual teaching. However, they did this without having the slightest idea that the true prophetic witness of extraterrestrial encounters and the unfalsified roots of their Christian culture was located right in their midst. The contradictions between the hustle and bustle and the wisdom and knowledge in the Goblet of Truth were so close in those everyday moments, and yet centuries and even worlds apart from one another. Like an undiscovered seed, the teaching slumbered in my bag, yet it harbored the millennial destiny of only fully unfolding over the course of coming centuries in order to become a great wave of instruction, as is described in the Goblet of Truth. Paradoxically, a unique teaching of life has been written down on our small planet, which will be carried into the depths of space during coming centuries and will be taught and applied on numerous distant planets before one day finding consideration and recognition on its actual originating planet. Unfortunately, the content of the following verse in this book will prove well-founded for a long time to come. Goblet of Truth, Chapter 2, Verse 97. The large mass of you does not want to know in any way and does not want to recognize the truth unless you can hold the things of truth in your hands, see them with your eyes, and hear them with your ears. And yet the real truth of the real truth is not that of holding, seeing and hearing, rather it is that of the inner cognition through rationality and intellect as well as the true knowledge and wisdom that are fully free from beliefs. Conscious that the tiniest seed is capable of bringing forth a large fruit, it was a great honor for me to be allowed to pen a brief, introductory words so as to present to a terrestrial and extraterrestrial readership this exceedingly valuable and significant book by my companion of many years, clever advisor, patient friend and wise teacher Billy Eduard Albert Meier, named Beam. My transcription was produced with the greatest of care as well as to the best of my ability and capability, and also in the consciousness that these lines will last for many thousands of years and will be read by numerous future generations on this and other worlds. This book and its teaching of spirit, the teaching of life and the real creational truth will certainly endure for the coming millennia, be kept in the archives of numerous planets and taught in the schools of many worlds. Worlds and planets will be born and die, and yet the mothers of all creations and their creational truth will endure for all time, because compared to the creational truth and its might, even the giant suns are but small candles. Numerous generations will follow and learn about the new time and its prophet, so as to recognize the true teaching of life and the creational truth. With these in mind and in the name of numerous contemporary friends, seeking an interested terrestrial and extraterrestrial people, the prophet of the new time is due heartfelt thanks for his untiring work on this Goblet of Truth, as an expression of profound love, friendship and connection in friendship. Equally, he is due recognition, consideration and respect for his lifelong forbearance and inexhaustible patience with the humankind of this planet Terra. Dear Billy, may your work in the true sense of Nicodemus' idea for evolutive help for creation bear great fruit. May your creational teaching of life prove helpful to people. May it open their senses and their consciousness, and may it reveal to them the true existence and the sense of the creational existence. Thank you, my friend, you son of selflessness and true prophet of the new time, Billy Eduard Albert Meier, named Beam Salome. Hans-Georg Lanzendorfer Schmidt T. February 2008. Many readers will quietly ask themselves why the Goblet of Truth has only been set down and recorded in writing in these current days of the dawning new time, in a phase of the most profound uncertainty and elementary upheaval, and why this work of such great import has only appeared now when the human beings of Earth have almost irretrievably strayed into the dark abysses of their cult religions and convictions, and the difficult, tortuous way back lies ahead of them. Indeed, many might rack their brains and pore over the question of why the human beings of earth have not been spared from all the cultish works and innumerable errors and confusions, and why the Goblet of Truth was not written down at a much earlier time and passed on to the current generations. The Goblet of Truth itself provides an emphatic, clear and unmistakable response to this chapter 6, verse 10. Truly, the wellspring of wisdom, book of wisdom, could have been given to you by a true prophet already before that far-off time. Then it would have been if it had been feasible possible, and yet the possibility can only present itself if the necessary contingencies conditions were in place so that the wellspring of wisdom, book of wisdom, would reach the hands of all those who are ready for it. Therefore it is still necessary for a deferment until the new time. However, after that you will no longer be able to trot out the usual pretexts, excuses, that you had not been brought the real truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitality's creation, in the form of the teaching of the prophets as the Goblet of Truth. Although the clarity of these words set our insides vibrating like the deep strokes of a gong, they have to be explained for many people who are incapable of tracking down, sensing and following the truth in themselves. Who else, however, could better and more truthfully explain why the Goblet of Truth was not set down in writing by the first prophet than Billy, the last prophet in the series of the 7 proclaimers on this earth who are descended from the Nochodemean line? Extract from the 459th Contact, Sunday, 3.2.2008. In old times, there were only very few people able to master script, because the people was not generally well educated and, being illiterate, not able to read and write. Therefore, if only for this reason, there was no sense in producing large-scale writings. And those amongst the few literate people to whom the prophets gave the task of setting down the teaching of truth, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of life, or the Goblet of Truth in accordance with Nochodemean's guideline, falsified everything beyond recognition. In the old times, also, there were no schools like today in which people in general can learn reading and writing, and there were also no technical possibilities for duplicating the written records that were produced. Whenever anything was reproduced, everything had to be wondrously written out by hand. However, this was also only possible if handwriting was involved. Hieroglyphs, cuneiform scripts, etc., had to be laboriously copied, and even those who were literate in these forms of writing were extremely few and far between, and were practically not to be found amongst the common people, but only amongst scholars. The impression is given in the current time that many people could read and write even in the old times, although this was of course not the case, but this fact is consistently hushed up nowadays. It is only in the new time, that started in 1844, that reading and writing became widespread throughout the people, and the technology for duplicating and mass-producing books, texts, journals and newspapers, etc., on a large scale. Also, it was only towards the end of the 20th century that the means of electronic dissemination of books and texts via computer and over the Internet developed to such an extent that everything could be easily distributed all over Earth. All this had already been foreseen by Nochodemean and the Arhat Atharsada level, which is why the whole thing was prepared and laid out so that the Goblet of Truth shall be brought in its definitive form and full extent, and disseminated worldwide, in the new time, and therefore Nochodemean's teaching of truth, teaching of spirit, teaching of life. However, this shall happen in the new time because only then are all technical and electronic conditions in place to make the whole thing possible,